How's it going, Illumineers? It is Prashan here, and I just completed my first set championship of this winter spell season, and I ended up getting a Tinkerbell. I ended up finishing top 8. I fell short. I did not get the mat. I really want the mat. I think the mat is cooler than the Daisy one. I really love my Daisy championship mat, but I really want a Tinkerbell one. So I'm going to play in 3 more set championships. Maybe I could squeak out another. That way I can at least get a playset at Tinkerbell's. And I made this video, so hopefully you guys can get a Tinkerbell as well, especially if you want to play Purple Steel. The reason why I chose Purple Steel, normally I'm a dogs player at heart. I've been playing dogs, but at locals the past few weeks, I've been getting stomped by Purple Steel. So I decided if I can't beat them, join them. So I made a Purple Steel good cards deck. And what we're going to do in this video, we're going to talk about the deck, my mindset going into set championships, and then we'll talk about some of my matchups that I saw in set championships, and hopefully you can learn from them, and hopefully I can learn from my experience as well. So if you like this type of content, this is actually my first video on this channel, please hit that subscribe button. And yeah, and if you want to see more stuff like this, or if you want to see other decks, let me know down in the comments and let me know what you guys are playing. So let's go into the deck. So we have 3 Diablos, 2 Olafs, 4 Captain Hooks, 3 Christopher Robins, 3 Black Herons, 3 Calhouns, 3 Docks, 4 Cheshire Cats, 4 Giant Cobras, 3 Lexingtons, 3 Genies, 2 Isises, 2 Queen, 2 Tigers, 3 Yzmas, 4 Elsas, 3 Hades, 2 Plutos, 3 Demonas, and 4 Strength of a Raging Fire. So this is basically Purple Steel, but a bunch of good cards that do things very well. And this is like a hodgepodge of things. Really, you don't have that many 4-ofs. We have 4 Captain Hooks, we have 4 Elsas, 4 Cheshire Cats, 4 Giant Cobras, and 4 Strengths. I feel like those are the better cards that we need maybe 4 of, especially Captain Hook for the early game, Cheshire Cat just to move damage around and keep your opponent honest, and we have Giant Cobra because Giant Cobra is one of those cards that can just sneakily win you the game or put you over the top when you're at 18. You just have Giant Cobra, another card in your hand, discard the card, you win. And of course, 4 Strength of a Raging Fire. That way the odds are in your favor. So when you look at this deck, we look at Diablo. I'm going to go card by card here. And we're going to look at Diablo. Diablo is a card that I was able to sneak out 3 lore every single game or most games because my opponent did not want me to draw in the early game. So you put Diablo down and it keeps your opponent a little bit honest. Sometimes they'll swing into it. Typically around like game 2 and 3, they'll swing into it early, like thinking like, all right, fine, you can have the card. But when you're first playing, they're like, I'm not going to swing. I don't know what this guy's playing. I don't want to give him extra cards. And then next we have Olaf here. Olaf is good with bouncing things back. So you can bounce Giant Cobras back. You can bounce Docks back. You can bounce back other characters that have damage on them and then play them again. Like you would want to try to do like Hades. That way you can make another deal. Or Elsa to swing back in. Or Tigger, you can even bounce back a Tigger and then bounce back something else on your opponent's side. There's so many lines you could do with Olaf, or so many intricate ways you could play Olaf, but there's only 2 of. The reason why I only have 2 of is because he goes away pretty quickly, and he's a card I want to play late game, not early game per se. This is a card I want to see at the end, not the beginning, so there's only 2. And then next we have Captain Hook. This Captain Hook has Challenger 2. So this is just a body to just keep your dogs players, keep other players honest on the field. Because if they're gonna quest or do something, sing a song, you're gonna have that Captain Hook to challenge and swing right in. And then next we have Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin, good underdog card too. This keeps your opponent honest as well, or you could speed games up. If you see certain types of decks that go slower, like a blue-green or a purple-blue blurple, you want to play Christopher Robin and just quest early as you can, early and often as you can, because typically those decks don't get going until around turns like 4 and later. And then next, Black Heron. I have 3 of in this deck because she's a good turn 2 card. 3/3 stats. If they decide to do something or turn something sideways, you could just use Black Heron for some defense. And then next we have Calhoun. Calhoun eats. Calhoun eats a lot, right? Especially the smaller aggro decks. She has resist 1, and the fact that like you gain 2 lore if you just polish something off and banish something is awesome. And then you pair that with Pluto as well. There was turns I had 2 Calhouns out on the field, and I also had Pluto, and I was able to gain 8 lore in 1 turn, and that just turns the tide of the game, and it's hard for someone to come back from that. And then next here we have Doc. Doc is something or a card that replenishes your hand. Basically, this is a card that you want to see later in the game, not in the beginning of the game, of course. But of course, when you're like typically you want to play everything in order, right? And then you want to empty out your hand that way you can refill it again. And Doc is one of those cards. And Cheshire Cat, another card that we have 4 of. This is such a good card. You typically don't want to turn the sideways at all, unless your opponent doesn't have anything on the other side. You're typically just moving damage around strategically. That way you could get things off on their side and keep things on your side alive a little bit longer. And next we have Giant Cobra. Giant Cobra is very, very good. Of course, like I said before, if you play Giant Cobra and you discard a card, you gain 2 lore. In the game, this is so good. This puts you over the top. And he's also a big body, like a 3-cost card that is a 4/4. So you can basically take out anything on turn 3 on like your opponent's side, right? It's so good. The only downside of this, they could play Fire the Cannons on Giant Cobra, and he's gone. They could play a Strength of a Raging Fire, only do like 1 damage to him. He's gone. The Vanish is a downside of this card. And then next we have Lexington. Lexington is another good card that is a turn 3 play. And he has alert, so he could go against evasive cards. We really don't have that many evasive cards in this deck. We only have Lexington and then the next card, Genie, for the most part. And everything else is just low to the ground. And sometimes you're stuck, right? Like if they have too many of... Oh yeah, we also have Elsa. Sorry, we also have Elsa. But for the most part, like it's low to the ground. You need to have Lexington in this deck. That way you have something out of alert. There's also the other Genie too that has alert. There's many other cards like Iago. But I decided to go with Lexington because he has big stats. And then next we have Genie. We have 3 of in this deck just for the card draw. I tried to stay with cards that cost 3 or more in the range of having more than 3 power, because there's tons of dogs, tons of under the sea stuff. I just wanted to have things that can attack high and then pass that threshold of them not wanting to play under the sea or make their under the sea powerless, but Genie is under the seeable. So for the most part, I'm like, all right, I'm playing him for card draw for the most part. And he's uninkable, so that's a downside of him too. But yeah, I just played him for the card draw, and the fact that he's evasive and he could quest for 2 is very good on late game. And then next we have Isis Vanderchill. So this is basically like your Timu version of Elsa, right? Like when you play her, you could exert any opponent card on the other side, and this helps out, especially if you have those big bodies like Giant Cobra, your Lexington, and then you can use your Cheshire Cat to move that damage. She is so good in those late game situations, or when you're at that stalemate and your opponent doesn't want to tap anything, right? Or exert anything, so you use Isis to exert a character and then you swing into them. And then you just change the trajectory of how the match goes. And next, we have the Queen. The Queen is a card that is basically a wild card. So when you play this, you choose 3 cards from your opponent's discard, and then you tap her or you exert her, and You choose 3 cards from your opponent's discard, and you put them at the bottom of their deck, and you gain 3 lore. If there was a princess card, you gain 4 lore. So this is a card that a lot of people picked up to read, and it changed what they were gonna do, right? So basically, if someone played like Aurora, if you're playing against those aggro decks that have Tiana too, like be careful, especially last. They wanted to be careful, especially like at the end of the game. They're like, holy crap. But I put this in here for dogs for the most part too, because with like Tramp, they're gonna be discarding and fishing, and if they discard like a Lilo, especially like Amber Song, like Steel Song, right? Like that too, like they want to get rid of a Lilo and then play it back later. So I just wanted to get rid of that, especially late game. So you just tap, you have them bury that at the bottom of their deck, never to be seen again. And same as like Under the Sea, like dogs decks, it was the same thing too. And I was able to sneak off like 3 lore, or it makes your opponent like think again. It's like crap, I need to get rid of this queen because this could be a problem later on in the game. And then next here we have Tigger. Tigger is just gonna bounce things back that costs 2 or less to your hand or your opponent's hand or anything. So it's very situational. You can bounce something on their side, or you can bounce something back from your side, right? If you have like a Cheshire Cat that you feel like your opponent's gonna kill off, you just like lose some damage, bounce it back. Or if you have a Doc, of course, Doc, bounce it back. Or if you want more card draw, no, you can't do that. I was trying to think of card draw, but yeah, like it's a pretty good card to have in this deck. And then next we have Yzma. Yzma is a replacement of Dumbo. I only have 1 Dumbo. I had 2 Dumbos, but I made a stupid trade at the beginning of Fabled. I traded like Aurora for a Dumbo, right? Epic Aurora for a Dumbo, which was a bad trade in hindsight because like I was an aggro player. I was like, I'm not gonna play like purple at all, and look at me now. Like a few months later, I'm playing purple. But I feel like Yzma's a better card, especially when I don't have that many faces in this deck. Like there's only Genie and Elsa that would benefit from Dumbo, and of course Dumbo itself. I feel like with Yzma, I was able to empty out my hand and then get at least 3 back. Same thing with Demona. We'll talk about her in a bit. But I felt like I got more value from Yzma, and the fact that she's like inkable too is pretty good. Sometimes you have those decisions where do you play Genie or do you play Yzma? Most of the times I tried to play Yzma, or I would play Genie and try to play Yzma later on. And then next here we have Elsa. Elsa is definitely the game changer too, as well as Ices. Just make an opponent exert a card that they don't want exerted, and you ram into it with one of your big bodies, move damage around, and basically that could swing a game. And then next here, Hades. Let's make a deal. Another card too where you could just draw cards. I think that's the advantage of purple. I think purple is good because you draw cards and you get what you want, and then you basically do what you want. And that's one of those cards, especially like beginning of the game, like if they have like an angel on the board or something, you want to make a deal, try to get that card off. And yeah, so good. And then next here, Pluto. Pluto is item hate. Item hate. That's the only reason Pluto is in here. There's other cards I wanted to put in here too, like Donald Duck, the new Donald Duck. I thought was pretty good as well. Benja is good too. I felt like one of the reasons I lost in top 8, I'll probably explain that game in detail later, but one of the reasons I lost in top 8 was because I did not hard mulligan for Pluto, and I did not respect the Chromacon. So that was my bad, but you have to respect it. Maybe I would put 2 more in here, or maybe I'll put like Benja in here later if I do see more dogs, just because I got burned from Chromacon. But such a good card, especially when you have another steel body. Getting rid of another character, you gain 2 lore, and that, like, sometimes your opponent cannot come back from that. And then next, Demona. Demona makes your opponent exert all of their cards. So another card that makes them exert when they do not want to, and then you just go from there and trade. And then, of course, we have the Strength of a Raging Fire. So this is card 2. I try not to have in my hand at the beginning of the game, unless it depends on your matchup. If you know, like, you're not playing against, like, Steel Song or Dogs, you could have this in your opening hand. And if you are playing against them, you don't want to have this in an opening hand, since they have, like, Ursulas and they have Mowgli's, which try to get rid of this. And you want to utilize every card and every resource as you can in this deck. So yeah, so that is the deck. It was probably long-winded. Gosh, that was a lot. And I'm going to talk about some of my matchups and what I saw, right? Like what I saw in my matchups, what I would have did differently, and maybe what you guys could do in your set championships. So yeah, let's talk about my first matchup. All right, so let's go into what I saw during my set championship run. The set championship I played was 20 people, just in case, because I know sometimes there's like some set championships where there's like 8 or 9 people, and then luckily like you get in automatically. But this one I actually had to grind out for. I went 2-1-1 and I bubbled in. There's 3 of us that had the same record, and luckily I won off of my opponent's records being just a little bit better than the others. So going into my first match, I saw Blurple, and that was pretty scary just because late game, I couldn't hang. I know early game and mid game, we could be even, or even early game, I could be a little bit faster because what they're looking for is that ramp. They're going to play Tipo or Sail on 2, and then try to play something on 4, maybe a Cinderella on 4, and then go from there. But I knew or saw that coming. As soon as I saw their first ink, I was like, crap, they're playing Blurple, they're trying to play control, let me go as fast as possible. And that's what I had to do. Anytime I see blue-green or Blurple, I try to go as fast and as wide as possible, especially like since they have all the removal. And luckily with Blurple, they ended up putting things into my inkwell. So they played cards like Let It Go, or they would play Hades. As soon as I saw 7 ink, I knew they were going to play Hades. As soon as I saw 5 ink, I knew they were going to play Let It Go. It's sort of like those things as you get better as a player. If you look at the other side, you could count their ink, and typically you could tell what they're going to do before you do it. And luckily, that was one of those matchups where I knew exactly what they were going to do before they did it. So basically, they just ramped me up, and I was able to play on curve, and I was able to play cards like Doc, where I was able to draw. I was able to play Yzma, where I was able to draw. I was able to play my Genie, where I was able to draw. They typically early game, they want to take out your Cheshire Cats because that's a card that they're afraid of. Same thing with the Queen. That was another card they were definitely afraid of, and they wanted to Let It Go or Hades make a deal, or they just wanted to use the other Hades to get rid of it. So luckily, I got past Fast and Furious. I went 2-0 against Blurple. And then next, I saw the mirror. So this is something I definitely did not want to see in this set champs, is the mirror. Because there is so many cards that go into Purple Steel where they're good. And then some cards you might not have and they have, and some cards you might have that they don't. And I feel like Fire the Cannons is one of those cards I did have in my deck, but I took it out. I felt like sometimes I used it, sometimes I didn't. I might make a change and put Fire the Cannons in, but that's a card that my opponent played, or they had Strength. They played Strength early or on curve, so it was pretty tough. But my first match into the mirror, I was able to go wide quickly and was able to quest out pretty quickly. Second game was a stall. It took forever. We're just going back and forth. It was definitely a chess match, and I ended up losing that match. And the third match was the same. It was a chess match too, but I made a mistake. I ended up inking my Demona instead of playing Demona, and I ended up playing 2 cards out instead when I should have played Demona, had my opponent turn sideways, and then trade from there. that probably could have saved me a few turns. And I think when I was moving damage around with Cheshire Cat, I picked the wrong characters because they were able to quest for 19, I believe. I thought in my head it was 19 until I counted again. I was like, oh crap, there's 20 on board. There's no way I can win this. So I ended up going 1-2 against the mirror. So that made me 1-1 going into game 3. And game 3 was, you guessed it, another mirror match. So basically more of the same. It was basically a chess match. First game, I was able to go fast and wide. Second game, it just slowed down to a crawl. It was a chess match. It was basically going back and forth. I think I was at like 17 or 18 lore. They were at like 18 or 19. It was very, very close. I almost won with the queen. I had the queen for 3 lore. I was at like 19. Man, they were able to steal it out. But if they had a princess in their discard, if there's just one princess, if Elsa was in their discard, I would have been able to win the game. Wait, I think Elsa is a queen. Sorry, Elsa is a queen. But if they if Elsa was a princess instead of a queen, like I would have won the game. And then our third game, it was just a back and forth battle where like we couldn't do anything. Like the game took forever. We went to time. We ended up tying. So after my third match, we ended up going 2. I ended up going 1, 1, and 1. Going into the fourth round. So I had to win or go home. I knew I had to win. I had a chance to get into the top 8 if I won, just feeling out like how the everything was going on in the room and how everyone's like stats were pretty much, or records were. So last match, I ended up going against Red Steel, a very interesting deck. It was a little bit slow. It needed some setup. It really did work against me because my deck is fast, and I also have removal too. I believe they had removal too. They had strength and all that stuff, but I was just playing cards on curve. They couldn't play cards on curve. My cards were a little bit bigger than theirs, and that's how I ended up winning. I ended up going 2-0. So I took that game. And then top 8. I snuck in the top 8, and I ended up being 8. So I played the top seed player. They ended up being dogs. So this was a matchup I felt confident in because this deck was made to beat dogs for the most part. First game, I rolled over dogs. Pun intended, right? Roll over. Yeah, like they couldn't play under the sea, right? Like in any time they quested, I was able to take out their cards. I had Cheshire Cat to move damage around. They weren't able to find the Chromacon, so I was able to just take the game pretty easily. Second game though, Chromacon, like it was, I couldn't find. I made the mistake, or I didn't really respect the Chromacon as much. I should have tried to hard mulligan for Pluto at least, which I didn't, which made me feel like I needed to put more item hate in this deck. And they ended up going off with that game too. It was pretty close too. And game 3 was another close game. And Chromacon was out there again. I wasn't able to get Pluto out at all. I felt like if I got Pluto, I would have been able to swing the tide. But unfortunately, I couldn't. But overall, I had a very good set champs, especially since I was on vacation. I went on a Disney cruise for 3 days, and then I was at Disney for 3 days, so I had no Lorcana at all. And then like the next day, I came back set champs, and I put this literally together maybe like a few hours before set champs. So luckily, we got the card. Hopefully, this helps you guys a little bit too. It's sort of like podcasty or me talking about the deck. And if you like this type of content, or if you want to see more content and you always want to support, hit that subscribe button down below. I also have links to my TikTok where I do lore videos. I do have a Beauty and the Beast lore video coming up pretty soon, from the screen to the inkwell. And be on the lookout for that. Till next time, be safe and peace.